Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:07, O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here. Busy Tuesday morning. We're 42 days away from Election Day, I want to say. Yes, it's got to be a multiple of 7 because today's a Tuesday. That's how my brain works. So, yes, we are 6 weeks away from Election Day. Of course, in Virginia, you're voting right now. Get out there and do it right. Coming up at 6:35, speaking of Virginia voters, how about the chairman of the Arlington Republican Party, Matthew Hurtt, to talk about some unhinged lefties stealing Trump signs? And
Not surprised.
Isn't he, like, Arlington is all blue, all Democrat. Why should they care about Trump signs? Why? I mean,
there's probably like 3 Trump signs.
Are they scared?
They must be.
It's 7:05. James Rosen, White House correspondent for Newsmax. We're going to ask the Newsmax White House correspondent a very important question. Who's the president right now?
Who's next?
7:35. Trevor Maddich on the Commanders' victory last night on Monday Night Football and the coming of age of Jaden Daniels. And then at 8:05, Miranda Devine, New York Post. 8:35, Matt Whitaker. That's Julie Gunlock, and I'm Larry O'Connor. Whew. Byron York is one of the most insightful political analysts in Washington, D.C., one of our favorite guests, favorite reporters. He tells it like it is, and he's good at it. He turned his sights in a column yesterday on his colleagues in the media. It's a great headline. So many don't want to know so much about Kamala Harris. Yeah. You know, you're a political reporter, and you're covering politics in September, late September 2024. You've got 2 big stories. It's the Democrat nominee and the Republican nominee. And really, out of the 2, the bigger story is the Democrat. Because what's your new angle on Trump at this point, right? What's your new breaking story on Donald Trump? You've already said all you can say and reported all you can report on Donald Trump. Take a moment and actually maybe dive into what the hell is going on the Democrat side, how Kamala Harris got there, how Joe Biden got taken out. Oh, by the way, not to mention the fact that on every key important issue, Kamala Harris has done a complete 180 and reversed herself. And they're just taking that without actually saying, well, wait a minute, what's the basis for you changing your position 4 years later? In some cases, 1 year later. What led you to change your position on this? But Byron York lays it out here. They are completely incurious and uninterested on this candidate, Kamala Harris, who could be president in 6 weeks.
The dearth of curiosity is what has really upset so many people. And what's so funny is in Washington, Larry, you know, we've been in this town long enough that every journalist wants their Watergate moment.
Yes.
And they have been handed it. The last couple of years, the pushing out of Joe Biden, the what happened with social media during the last election, what they did with Twitter, Elon Musk saving Twitter, how Twitter and Facebook got involved in these elections and were taking information away from Americans during COVID. These are all amazing stories that the media has actually tried to bury.
Right. It's actually the opposite. Forget about the lack of curiosity. They know the story is there. They're either ignoring it or doing their best to actually bury the story, as you put it, or they're using their abilities in creative writing, because I think you had to take a creative writing course to get your journalism degree. They're using their creative writing talents to actually write fictional defenses of these stories, like the Hunter Biden story and the other ones that you mentioned. As Byron puts it, what has emerged recently is a new type of journalist who wants less rather than more information about the most important story of the moment. Here's an example. Brett Stevens, New York Times columnist. What Harris must do to win over skeptics like me. Stevens went through a number of policy questions, including Iran, Ukraine, Hamas, federal spending, climate, housing, nuclear power, and more, about which Harris has not given full descriptions of her positions or any descriptions at all.
Yeah.
Quoting the article, all this helps explain my unease with the thought of voting for Harris, an unease I never felt despite policy differences when Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden were on the ballot. By the way, Stevens calls himself a Republican.
Yeah, exactly.
If Harris can answer the questions I posed above, she should be quick to do so, if only to dispel a widespread perception of unseriousness.
I mean, this is a conservative in the so-called conservative columnist in the New York Times. Listen to him. Listen to how he's just like, you know, I just have this unease because she's not. I was never uneasy voting for Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, who were monsters.
Yeah. He then goes on to talk about Stevens appearing on Friday on Real Time with Bill Maher with Stephanie Ruhle.
Yeah.
And
I love what Byron New York writes here. He says, first, Stevens had to establish his anti-Trump bona fides. He would never be taken seriously by the audience unless he did that. And he did that multiple times.
Of course. He wouldn't even be allowed to go on the stage. Right.
I'm never going to vote for Trump, he said.
But then Stephanie Ruhle made the perfect point. She says, let's say you don't like her answers to your questions. Are you going to vote for Donald Trump? And Stevens says, no. And then Ruhle said, well, then why should she answer you?
Yeah, who cares?
Right. And then Stephanie Ruhle said, Kamala Harris is not running for perfect.
Right.
We have two choices, and we hate Trump. So that's what you're seeing from the media.
Yeah.
They're spending all their time reminding everyone about what they don't like about Donald Trump because they can't say anything about Kamala Harris that's
absolutely
positive.
Insane what Ruhle is saying here, right? But she's right. Like, Democrats, it's all about winning. It's about power.
Right. So Brett Stevens pushes back and says, well, people are expected to have some idea of what the program is that you're supposed to vote for. I don't think it's too much to ask for her to sit down for a real interview. And here's where Stephanie Ruhle came. And again, I want to reiterate, Stephanie Ruhle is a paid journalist.
Yeah.
She is an anchor of a show for NBC, proud as a Peacock News.
She's not a commentator. She's a journalist.
And she replied and said, I would just say to that when you move to Nirvana, give me your real estate broker's number, and I'll be your next door neighbor. We don't live there.
Can you imagine this? I mean, so she's basically saying it's only in a perfect world that candidates for president answer basic
policy questions and sit for an interview. Now, listen, I understand if what she's saying is neither of these candidates are the candidates that I would prefer, and I don't like either of them, but this is the choice we've got. We don't live in a perfect world.
No.
Thank you. Welcome to my world for the last, since Reagan, and I didn't even get a chance to vote for Reagan, okay? We don't get perfect candidates. That's the reality of it. But this is not about whether you agree or disagree with them on policy. The whole point here is this candidate has not even told you what her policies are, or if she does tell you through an intermediary that she's changed her position on something, she's never explained why she's changed her position, and there's no reason to believe that she has changed her position. Over the course of the next 6 weeks, all you are going to see from the media and from Kamala Harris is January 6th, Trump's a convicted felon, abortion, and if he gets elected, it's a dictatorship on day one, and he will never leave the White House. That's all you're going to hear, which is, again, nothing new. It's the same regurgitated lies about Donald Trump.
Meanwhile, Harris has to say nothing.
And yet, you won't hear anything at all about what a potential President Harris might do in the White House. Even Barack Obama, who ran on hope and change, pretty much, at least he did say, we're going to fundamentally transform America. And he did give some specifics. To be fair, John McCain was incapable of actually running against those specifics for whatever reason. It's 6:15.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
You remember I've implored my colleagues to stop calling Kamala Harris's answers to things word salad because, of course, word salad has some nutritional value. I mean, at the very least, it's got roughage and fiber. At the end of eating a salad, you'll end up at least, having a nice visit to the toilet.
Oh, my God,
to sort of
Barry.
cleanse the colon.
It's too early.
But you don't even get that. If anything, you have the opposite effect when you listen to Kamala Harris. You actually end up a little bottled up. You know what I mean? You could use a salad or maybe some Metamucil.
This to move on.
That said, at the Oprah Winfrey infomercial on Thursday night, she was asked about her specific plans to secure the border. Listen to her word salad
specific
answer.
Steps to strengthening the border.
So it's a wonderful and important question.
Wonderful and important question.
My background was as a prosecutor, and I was...
First of all, I love this because she's currently the vice president in charge of the root causes of illegal immigration. Right. Then she was a U.S. senator.
Right.
Before that, she was an attorney general. But she goes all the way back to being DA of San Francisco to first explain her track record on securing the border.
And I love that,
You know. And anyway, and then she goes on to talk about being attorney general.
Also, the elected attorney general for 2 terms of a border state.
Right. Okay. That's fine. you realize that this administration under Kamala Harris has specifically stopped attorney generals in border states of doing anything about the border. They're like they're suing Ken Paxton and George Abbott in Texas from trying to do anything. I assure you, as a former Californian, she did absolutely nothing about the border. She did 0, 0, 0. Okay, but the whole argument that she makes here is, I'm a former prosecutor, I'm a former attorney general of a border state, so I will prosecute people who break the laws of our border security. We will apprehend them, and we will. And what's the penalty if you cross our border illegally? The penalty is deportation, right? Deportation, obviously. Well, yesterday, a video emerged from 2019 of Kamala Harris joining a protest over ICE and Trump policies, you know, the ones that actually did secure the border. And you can hear her chanting very clearly. Down with deportation, up with education, down with deportation, up with education, down with deportation.
Catching.
And she's grooving, and she's like, she likes the beat of it, too. You can see her dancing in there.
Like it says down with deportation, up with education. Cute.
Down with deportation. That was in Los Angeles in 2018. So we're supposed to look at her record as a prosecutor, and here she is dancing in the streets, undermining the actual penalty, which is deportation for people who enter the country illegally.
I'd like some of these chanters to go talk to the teachers in Springfield, Ohio, about the condition of the schools after getting a number of migrants, some of whom are in their 20s and are being enrolled in the local high school. So, just going back to that chant.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. By the way, back to, this is the sort of thing normally that a journalist would actually ask a question of the candidate and say, hey, you say that your border security policies and protocols are going to be, like you're a prosecutor. So what's up with you screaming down with deportation? CNN's Jake Tapper, he's the really good, serious, bipartisan journalist there. He's the good guy on CNN. He had a surrogate on, and that was the best he could get, was a surrogate.
Right.
And I love this. Instead of asking about policies of the surrogates, which is also a train wreck, the question is, frankly, from Jake Tapper, why the hell are you here instead of Kamala Harris? Why do I have to talk to you?
Why? Why is she not doing more interviews to talk about her policies and answer some of the questions that voters have about her policies and on her change on her views in some of them?
Well, Jake, she's done interviews, and I know that we would love, or you would love, to see her sit down every single day with CNN and do interviews, but she's a very busy person.
She's a very busy person. I mean, she did do that Wired website, Wired.com, sort of Google autofill video.
Yes.
That had to take a few hours out of she did that appearance with the cast of RuPaul's Drag Show.
She did the interview with Oprah.
Of course she did the interview with Oprah, although it wasn't really an interview, was it? Because that was actually a campaign function that Oprah was paid for.
A lot of be your authentic
It was
self
like an
kind of stuff.
infomercial, really. But she's very busy, very busy, very, very busy, spreading the joy.
That's
and
right.
Other things.
I feel joy.
621. As we've been discussing, early voting is going on in Virginia right now, and over in Arlington, over in what we're told is very blue, very Democrat, and there's no chance that Trump has any chance to do anything in that county, Arlington. A very angry liberal was caught on camera removing Trump yard signs from out in front of the early voting location at the courthouse. And, of course, these are, well outside the perimeter where you need to have your signs at an early voting place. There's signs for both candidates there. But the Trump signs, this woman walks over, just picks them up, plucks them out, and then throws them in the trash can.
Yep.
And the Arlington Republican Party social media account caught pictures of this person, or somebody caught the pictures and then sent them to Arlington GOP and put it out there. Don't know if we have an ID on this woman yet, but, you probably recognize her as all of your neighbors.
She was probably visiting Arlington from Del Rey, Alexandria. Look, they can't. The intolerance in Northern Virginia, particularly women, I would say, among liberals and Democrats. I mean, I think it was last year, we saw that video of a Republican coming out of a poll or coming out of casting his vote and being screamed at by a Democrat. who then walked over to a Prius, of course, which is so hilarious. But yeah, this is the intolerance that we see every day in Northern Virginia.
Is this an indication, though, that Democrats are getting a little nervous that they're even seeing Trump signs in Arlington? Listen, I'm not saying that Trump has a chance to win Arlington, but maybe a bigger dent than last time. Maybe they're getting a little panicky over there. Maybe they've put out a legion of Karens to go clean up all these signs. You know what? Coming up next, we're going to speak with the chairman of the Arlington Republican Party, Matthew Hurtt. Keep it here.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
636 O'Connor and Company, and I want to thank my on-air partner here, Julie Gunlock, for tolerating my insistence on her watching Navy football highlights during John Matthews' brilliant news report there. But I'm still living high off that game on Saturday. Coming up at 7:05, James Rosen, White House correspondent from Newsmax. 7:35, Trevor Maddich on last night's great Commanders game. We'll be watching some highlights of the Commanders game in a moment, Julie. 8:05, Miranda Devine, New York Post, and then at 8:35, Matt Whitaker, former acting United States Attorney General. We'll talk to him about the DOJ releasing this letter from the would-be Trump assassin. Unbelievable. As mentioned, that is Julie Gunlock. I'm Larry O'Connor, and joining us right now is the chairman of the Arlington Republican Party and a pretty cool dude, Matthew Hurtt. Hey, Matthew, thanks for joining us, sir.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Larry.
Talk to me about these photographs that you acquired catching a woman red-handed plucking up Trump Vance signs that were lawfully put out as campaign notifications and advertising, and then putting them in the garbage can. That's obviously a violation of the law.
So this allegedly happened on Saturday afternoon. Arlington Republicans have supporters everywhere. We got an anonymous email from an activist in the community who sent these two photos, gave us a little bit of context. And so we posted them out on social media to try to identify the young woman. Larry, I can tell you that the yard signs that were placed, that were pulled up and thrown in the trash, were actually placed by two young female activists. So the women in Arlington think that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are their saviors, but the Arlington Republican Committee has a secret weapon, and that is young female activists who go out late into the evening and put out these yard signs to trigger leftists the next morning.
It does trigger them. And by the way, these leftists are disenfranchising those young women from their constitutional right to campaign for the candidate of their choice.
And we've had activists out every day since the beginning of early voting on Friday morning of last week, handing out sample ballots for our full Republican slate of candidates, from Donald J. Trump to Hung Cao to Jerry Torres to Juan Carlos Fierro for county board.
Great.
We've got activists out engaging with voters because Republicans and Arlington voters want to hear from us.
Right.
So we are where they are, even when we get threatened, even when our signs are vandalized and pulled up.
Well, being a poll greeter can be kind of dangerous work. You know about this specifically. Last year, you had an unhinged progressive who then walked to a Prius, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, let's remind everybody what that moment was like.
You try to overthrow elections with violence, and then you're out here among decent people.
Thanks for coming out.
What do you have to say that, huh? What's on your what are your policy prescriptions?
Have a nice day.
Rapist rights, involving yourself in people's families, and
again, that was you, Matt, and all you were doing was standing there greeting people, handing out flyers.
Yeah. So, what? Anything ever come of that? I mean, did they ever find that guy? I can't remember.
I can't wait, Larry and Julie, 43 days until I get to stand at that polling location again and welcome that guy one more time.
That's right.
You know,
hey, dude, long time no see.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I let everything go in the legal system. We've got a Commonwealth attorney in Arlington who is not going to prosecute intimidation or assault, and so I let it go because what I get to do now is talk to your listeners and talk to listeners across
fair.
the country about what it means to be an activist in a deep blue community. And Larry, you said before the break that we weren't going to win this year in Arlington, and I will raise you that in 2027 we will elect someone at the local level in Arlington, and it's because of the hard work of the members of this committee at Arlington GOP.
Don't make me call fake news on you, Hurtt, okay? You are misquoting me, and I said I don't think any of us expect Trump to win in Arlington. I didn't say you're not going to win. I just said we're not expecting it.
Well,
what do you work for the Post?
From 2020 to 2021, we saw a 5.6-point swing in favor of Republicans in Arlington, and it's because the members of this committee were passing out sample ballots. We raised more money this year than we've ever raised, and it is so exciting. I tell people, I just saw the Reagan movie on Sunday night, and it reminds me of this joke that Ronald Reagan tells, is I'm the kid in the room full of horse manure saying there's got to be a pony in here somewhere, and I'm furiously digging out the ponies in Arlington. Larry.
Well, that's what you got to do, man. And I got to say, the fact that this guy got in your face last year at the polling place and the fact that this Karen is up there, illegally ripping up signs and throwing them in the trash, a confident political movement doesn't do that stuff, Matthew. They are, she's freaked out to even see a Trump van sign because they have been trying to intimidate anyone who isn't a Democrat in Arlington for years now.
But Matthew, I do want to ask you one quick question. I mean, you've seen what they've been doing to, for instance, Vice President nominee Vance, intimidating him.
Oh, in his neighborhood.
Yeah, in his neighborhood, doxing him, putting out where his house is. And of course, this is just a mile down the road from the baseball diamond where, that unhinged Bernie bro tried to kill 24 Republicans. I mean, these people really are unhinged. It is dangerous. We don't want to downplay that. What are your thoughts on this? And have Democrats eased up, or are they as awful as ever?
The Delray socialists who are clamoring about the closure of the Delray Park are the same ones who begged the government to close the park during COVID-19.
Right.
These people are out of control. But what it's going to take, though, is somebody a little bit younger and a little bit more aggressive, like me as the chairman of the Arlington GOP, to go out there and I live in a secured building, so I'm pretty safe here, and go out and make the case for our Republican principles. And I'll tell you, Larry and Julie, last year after that interaction at the Roslyn polling location, I did have increased patrol of the Arlington County Police around my apartment because they saw the video and they said, this guy is out of control.
So, listen, you are 100% absolutely right, Matthew Hurtt. This is why we have you on, to sort of let people know that there is a rising tide of, I know you keep stressing this, and I want to stress it too, young Republicans who live in Arlington. I know many of them. I hang out with them. You've got energy there right now. There's this group of 20-something MAGA bros and gals who are absolutely killing it, and if it should give us hope. And I want anybody who lives in Arlington right now, if you're a little older than that generation and you want to, join the cool kids, what can they do to volunteer and be a part of this last 6-week push?
At arlingtongop.org, there are a dozen or more efforts and opportunities to get involved. Our next meeting is Monday, September 30th in the Clarendon neighborhood. All the information is on arlingtongop.org.
Excellent.
And you can be 9 years old or you can be 99 years old, and you can make a difference in Arlington.
And you go meet in Clarendon, and then afterwards you got, 20 different pubs to choose from to hang out and have a pint. That's why the culture is so great there. Thanks, Matthew. Well done. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Larry.
6:44.
On the next Vince Colonnese show, the stories ripped from the headlines and translated into the truth. Join us 3 to 6 on WMAL.
Our friend Marianne Jensen down in Prince William County, she's a parent and activist for parents' rights in the school system there, very outspoken. She was great, at those school board meetings down there.
Yeah, she had a really famous viral video of her really snapping back
with the
at
school
this.
superintendent
Yes,
about their refusal to unmask after the Governor Youngkin. Yes.
Yeah.
She now has a source that delivered photographs of a classroom in Prince William County that featured these, saint-like drawings of Che Guevara and Fidel Castro. Put up on the wall. You know how you have American heroes up on the wall. You go into a classroom and they'll have George Washington and a little bio about them and things like that. And this is during Heritage Month. They're doing Heritage Month, I guess. I don't know. Does that mean Latin American Heritage Month or just you're celebrating whatever your heritage happens to be, unless it's, southern states of United States of America.
Exactly.
Are we doing Virginia Heritage by any chance? I'm thinking Virginia Heritage is only celebrated from like 1860 on. Nothing before that.
Right.
Anyway, at a local high school in Prince William County, 2 murderers were prominently displayed for students to admire during Heritage Month. Thankfully, concerned parents spoke up, and the school took them down. But the fact that they were displayed in the first place highlights a serious communism problem. And not just communism, mass murderer.
No. They put up the posters, but it's important. So it shows the picture of Che Guevara, and it says, iconic Marxist revolutionary, key figure in the Cuban Revolution for Fidel. That's what it says about Che Guevara.
Right. Wait. Where do you flip it over and it says, oh, by the way, also a mass murderer and assassin.
And jailed gay, LGBT, members of the LGBT community. For Fidel Castro, it says, long-standing leader and revolutionary figure of Cuba. Why don't you show pictures of Cuba right now? Let's talk about Cuba.
Could we have pictures? It's Heritage Month, so let's look at the heritage of all the people who starved to death because of Fidel Castro in Cuba.
The poor people who were trying to float over to Florida on a mattress.
The biggest problem, and Marianne Jensen points it out here and absolutely nailed it. The biggest problem is that the teacher who decided to put a picture of Che Guevara and Fidel Castro out to celebrate them as iconic heroes thought that it would be perfectly fine, appropriate, in fact, something that she would get lauded for. She's Teacher of the Year if she does this sort of thing, or he does this sort of thing. I guess it could be a dude. And not just that they would get away with it, but they did this because they thought it was absolutely perfectly normal. It's 6:52.